Can you see yourself?
I know. I'm not being that.
In the camera, can you? Okay, perfect.
Yeah, yeah. If I stay between the poles, I remember that.
Yep.
I'm good. Okay. How's everybody doing?
Good.
Good. I haven't seen you in a month.
Yeah.
Time flies.
When you're having fun.
When you're having fun. That's right. So thanks for having me back. I didn't screw it up too bad. All right. Okay. So I think I said last time we usually like to do engaging things, get you activated and going. So we're going to start today. We're all eating, but that's okay. You can do both. You're multitaskers. We're not good multitaskers. Did I talk about that last time? But our brain doesn't work that way. Everybody, some people say they're great multitaskers, but you're terrible. Your brain is just adjusted to do a couple things at once, but you're terrible at those things. Right? Like if you're watching Netflix and you have your laptop out and your cell phone, you don't know what's going on Netflix, you don't know who you're talking to on your cell phone, and that email hasn't been written for 45 minutes, right? But I'm multitasking, but you could have turned off the TV, put your cell phone down, and did your email in 30 seconds. But it's 45 minutes later and you haven't done anything, right? But you're multitasking, doing it all, and you're not doing any of it. Brain about anything else.
Or you're stopping the movie and then rewinding it.
Right, because you have,
I just missed 20 minutes when I was
Right.
drafting that email.
or if you're reading like a novel, right, and you're like, I have no idea what just happened in the last 3 pages because your mind went, you're thinking about something else, right? You know, you pick up that. So we're good at that. Okay, so you're going to be good multitaskers. So I passed out a little pad for you to keep and do whatever with, whatever. I have a whole box of goodies here that's here in surprise box. That's going to keep you all engaged. So as you're talking with me, I'm going to reward you with things.
In the chocolate.
Keep it going. No, see, I stay away from the candy and the food because I treat all of my adults like children.
Is it money?
No, because I don't have any money. I work for a non-profit organization for the love of God.
I get it.
We're all in the same boat here. We're all just faking it until we make it. Okay, so on this note card, you're going to put the number that you are feeling right this moment.
Who needs pens? Because I'll go get pens.
Ooh, I might have some pens in here. Let me
Oh, maybe I don't have to go anywhere. Hang on, I'm not moving. Freeze frame.
They're not the best pens.
I'm sorry, we didn't have to write last time, so.
I know. That's my fault. I have everything you need.
I bought
Yeah, thank you.
Look, I just got passed up again. I don't get Chick-fil-A. I don't get a pen. I just get just walk right.
Dude, I'm not worried. I have this special one just for you.
You gave me chapstick instead of a pen.
Right with your chapstick. There's your challenge for the day. Again, my name's Paul. Nice to see everybody.
Hey, Paul.
Hey, Paul.
I always forget to introduce myself again. I just go. Okay, so write the number where you are right now. Happy, relaxed, tired, to exploding. You probably see that. Unless you're really good at internalizing. Everybody good? Got your number down?
Yep.
Okay. What we're doing right now, this is called a mind-body focus drill. Okay? Yeah. I'm going to give you 1 minute to write down as many movies as you can think of. Ready,
Oh
go.
my God.
Any movie?
Any movie you can think of.
Oh my God, I can only think of one.
Okay. Stop, put your pencils down.
Oh
Pens
my
down.
goodness, why did my mind go blank?
All right. So, how many people had 5? How many people had 10?
I had 11.
We had
That's
11.
it.
I have,
Anybody had more than 11?
I have 16, but does it count if I put like John Wick 1
Yeah.
through 3 and
I didn't
didn't write
give
it
you
3
any rules.
times? Alright, 16.
Didn't give you any rules.
I put bad boy like
Can't change now though.
16.
What you have written? How many do you have?
16.
How many do you have?
She put 1 or 2, 3.
13? 16, 13. Anybody else have more? All right, you guys win the brain prize. For winning. Chef Ball brain prize. There you go.
Don't throw that in
I
anyone.
got 8. I
Okay.
got
Awesome.
Better than 10.
Next one. 1 minute. Yeah.
Well, now you're stressing me out because I know it's a contest.
That's exactly right. You see what just happened?
That one changed too.
It just changed. This is on purpose. Everything's a psychological game with everybody. We'll talk about it at the end. 1 minute to name as many musical artists. Ready, go.
What in God's name is happening?
Oh my God.
Okay, pencils down.
My mind just stopped working.
All right. So who had? How many people had 5?
I have more than that, but.
How many people had 10? 10? Okay. How many did you have? 17.
Oh, I had 20.
You had 20.
I had 13.
13.
I had 15.
Oh man. Okay. So you had 20.
17, 20.
17,
How many
20.
times you write down Kenny Chesney? That doesn't count.
Once.
My
A lot of country artists though.
Although she started with Jay-Z.
Wait, let me
It's
get.
so much Jay-Z.
Is
So
Kenny,
did I. That's so
is Kenny
weird.
Chesney
So
your
did
first
I.
one?
No, Jay-Z's actually.
Jay-Z's your first one.
And then Biggie and Tupac, and then I went right to
Nice. Can I do
that for you.
some 90s gangster rap?
So it's changed a little bit.
It's in our souls a little bit,
Oh, it is.
right? Yeah.
Oh, I didn't put pink.
Okay. Now take, you had a number, write your new number if it's changed.
I'm not sure what mine has.
Okay, that's fine.
It doesn't have to.
I feel like I'm still at 3.
Really feel if you've changed since we started till now. Notice anything different in your emotional capacities. Okay, so I'm going to use you, guinea pig. What was your number before?
I was at a solid 3.5
3.5. Where are you now?
and a solid 2.5.
Okay, we moved. Anybody else want to share?
I was at a 7.
Oh, nice, because I was late.
I'm just sad. A lot of things this morning happened that doesn't matter.
Okay,
But then I'm probably down to like, probably 2.
all right.
It was like Jay-Z and Biggie.
You're the opposite.
I won.
Yeah.
I started off stressed.
Okay.
Because of my morning and all the things I have going on. But now I'm pissed off at myself, so I'm at 7.
So which is worse for you, being stressed or irritated?
I think irritated because it's about me now. Like
Okay.
I'm stressed because there's things I just can't control that I'm trying to get done and whatever. And I know it'll get done sometime through the day. But now after playing this game, I'm just pissed off at myself because I could only think of 6 freaking bands. And then you got her shooting off 20 and this person over here doing 14 and I'm like, I can't think that fast. Like, what the hell's wrong with me? So now I'm just like aggravated with myself. So now I'm really bad.
So I've broken you today, perfect.
Don't break him. Please don't break her.
So we'll continue to pick on you a little bit, right? So, but here you are, you're exploring where your emotions are right now, though. And that's your first step into getting into a different one. Right? You're recognizing that you were stressed.
Yes.
Right? Would you have thought about that if I didn't ask that question? You would have just been stressed.
Yeah.
Right? You would just be experiencing stress.
Mm-hmm.
And you didn't have time to slow down and say, I am stressed.
Mm-hmm.
Now what? Right? Instead of like riding the stress wave that we all do, it's good to sometimes have this in our brains and say, where am I? Right? Okay, I am stressed right now. What do I do? How can I get down to relax? Or move it some way? Right? So you move to irritation. Whatever. But you're aware of that irritation. And now you're just going to go somehow be better at this game. Anybody else have a movement in their emotional numbers?
I stayed at wine.
You stayed at 1? Okay. Happy.
Hey, they got Chick-fil-A, so it's.
I know, right? It's a good game to play while you're eating.
Everything else is.
Right? So there's a couple things with this activity that we have to pay attention to, how the human body responds to stimulus. Right? So first of all, being just aware of our emotions is the first most important thing that we can do for ourselves. It's called being regulated. Right? We all have our crap and our garbage that we come in to work with. And we all have our crap or garbage that we go home with. Right? And it's important for us to look internally and find out where we are in that moment and not be blinded by that emotion that we're experiencing. Right? So this is one thing that we teach adults. Like I do this with teachers. Because imagine if you were a teacher and you walk in like this to your classroom full of first graders. Do you know teachers that do that?
No.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. And what
I had a
happens?
couple of them.
Yeah, absolutely, we had those teachers, right?
Changes the whole mood of the dynamic of the room.
Right, and you remember that teacher today.
I do.
Yeah.
Miss
Like-
Petrella.
See, it's horrible.
Miss Colette.
There you go. Everybody's got one, right? Yep. So how are we being aware of our personal emotional level? And how is that being shown to the people that we're caring for? Right, is a really big thing that we have to be aware of. So just being aware, that's one thing that we do with this, is just be aware of our emotions. And then we can see how our emotions change based on what we're doing. Right, so a lot of times when we do this, we'll have people that are irritated because they're in a training, or they're tired because they're at work. They didn't sleep last night, whatever. What focus drills can do sometimes is move you from a tired moment and to realize that you're relaxed, or maybe now you're more irritated instead of tired. Maybe that's activated you a little bit more because you're irritated, like you're awake, you're alive, right? Rather than just being like, oh, I have to do this. The focus drill, you have to continuously focus on one item that activates different parts of the brain to get you going and get you moving. Right? So it's like a quick tip thing that you can do for yourself if you're feeling worn out, burned out that day, don't want to be here. You can do your own focus drills. We'll go over a little bit more of that a little bit later. Is that cool? That makes sense. And then the competition piece is the third part, where we heard it verbalized. Oh, well now it's a competition, I have to get serious with it. And absolutely is what happens. Right? People get motivated by those things, good, bad, and different. Right? Sometimes it brings out the monster in people. Right? But oftentimes comes out in a healthy way where they're more engaged and more activated to what you want to do. So a lot of what that I have to talk with the people that we care about is finding ways to engage them and motivate them. How do we do that? Right? And you guys are in a very unique situation here. Right? How does this play out in what you're doing in your work? How can you engage your clients better? Right? How can we get them moving? How can I be here? How can I be more present with them also? Right? That's a big important thing. Cool? Any questions? Nothing? All right. So I don't remember where we stopped. Does anybody remember what we were talking about last time when we quit?
I just went to a 1 because my cookie is a chocolate chip.
There we go.
I told you. I told you.
I tried to explain that raisins aren't square.
I remember last time we were talking about changing behaviors a little bit.
Yeah.
And we were talking about consequences and punishment for behaviors and those kinds of things. And we're going to continue down that trope a little bit today, down that thread. We're going to follow that. But I think we have to go back and refresh our brains on what we talked about. The impacts of trauma on your developing brain, how that can come out in adulthood later on, right? I'm gonna get my little brain thing. Design. Remember we did Brain Anatomy 101, like simple brain stuff? We'll see how our recall is 30 days later. Now remember, it's okay that you don't remember anything because you remember about 20% of the things that came out of my mouth last time. That's it. And then it's been 30 days since anybody's reinforced what came out of my mouth, so it's probably down to like 10% now. That's okay. That's how we prioritize in our minds.
Does that hurt your feelings?
Not at all. It's just science. It's just the way it goes. I don't know. I don't remember what I said last time. That's a terrifying thing, right? So I told Kyle, where we stopped? I've done like 6 of these since I've seen you guys. I have no idea. I have no idea.
I remember we talked about sitting on the side of the bed and telling him, come on,
That's right. You were like, that's the stupidest thing I've ever heard.
That would be me.
But we're
I
gonna.
didn't say it that aggressive.
I'm being very exaggerating your. But we're gonna talk. We're gonna make this. We're gonna make that more practical in the understanding piece as we go along. This I was throwing a lot at you guys last time. Remember, right? So we're gonna go back to the very start of everything and put it into context. So we have our brain. We all have one. Sometimes it works good. Sometimes it doesn't. Right? Sometimes it does bad things for us. Sometimes it does good things for us. Right? Remember we did our who's my $100 bill tosser out? My volunteer.
It was Kim.
It was Kim. I thought so. Do you remember passing out $10 $100 bills?
We remember that.
They gave you a
She
thumbs
didn't give me
up.
one.
Okay. So we turned my thumb upside down. Remember, this is our brainstem. Who remembers what our brainstem does?
Controls are like a respiratory.
Yeah, autonomic nervous system, automatic.
Autonomic nervous system, yeah.
Things that we don't have to think about. Heart rate, breathing, temperature. What is so funny?
One, I told
Would you like to share?
You told me something and that made me laugh, and then Kim's like, auto brain. I mean,
Auto brain.
We just think she's cute.
I'm just cute and funny.
She is cute and funny.
I really want to hear you say amygdala one more time because that was really funny last
That
time.
was
What do you want to hear?
I want to hear you try to say amygdala again.
Yeah.
You kept calling it an amygdala.
Amygdala.
She was like combining the Adam Sandler Waterboy medulla oblongata.
I know. Well, even when
Right.
her and I went outside and she was still saying it wrong.
An amygdala. An amygdala? No.
Amygdala.
Armadillo?
Good.
Yep.
Yes.
Right.
It's like the people on the street, you know, those things where they ask people like how many states there are, and they're like 7, and the guy's like, yep, and they're like, I got it. It's the best. It's sad, but it's the best, right? So, okay, our brainstem. autonomic things, heart rate, breathing, temperature. Important. We're gonna add this to our slide here. Right down here, that's called state regulation. That's happening, critical windows of development. That's in utero, baby in the belly, to 8 months. That's when your brainstem's learning how to beat. Okay, so everything's going fine. You have a normal ranged heart rate. That's like when you go and you see your doctor while you're pregnant, right? Do they check the heart rate? Yep, why? Making sure your brainstem's working right.
So you can guess if it's a boy.
That too, maybe. I don't know how accurate that is. I have 4 girls and they've all been different, so I throw that out.
Yeah,
There's-
every boys, they're all different.
Yeah, see? Okay, so that's happening in our brainstem. That's the part that connects right to our spinal cord, right? All that mess is there. Remember, this is our reptilian part of our brain, right? This is the part that if you do all of the splicing and dicing of the actual tissue of your brain, looks about 99% the same as a reptile. Okay, so it's just a little, there's just more proteins, is what they call them, in our brains than reptiles, so it's a little more complex, but the structural system is about the same. Okay, so we're still biological creatures, right? We're not like this ascended creature yet. We haven't made that evolutionary change. We still have this biological innate piece of us that causes our problems, right? Okay, so the fat part of my thumb is called the midbrain. Okay, as we go up the brain, it gets a little more complex. This is still part of the reptile brain. Remember, I asked you what reptiles do. What do lizards do?
Change color.
They don't change color. Well, they do, but we don't. I said don't say change colors last time. It's okay. You remember this. But what do lizards? What do we do to get that lizards do?
Shed our skin.
They eat.
We do shed our skin.
not wrong.
That's all the
They
dust
eat.
that's around. That's
They
right.
eat.
They do eat.
They poop.
They poop.
sleep.
They sleep.
They run around.
They run around.
They like the sun.
They do like the sun, but that's because they're cold-blooded.
Oh.
That's how they live.
They stick their tongues out.
They do. You stick your tongue out too. What else can they do? Look around.
Can they hear and see?
They hear, they see.
They reproduce.
They reproduce. That's part of it too.
Breathe.
Yeah, all of those things that are happening. Your motor systems, right? Your desires to reproduce. That's all happening in these parts of the brain. Okay. So this is what we're going to talk about midbrain or motor functioning. In our little babies, that's our first year. So everything's going well. That's great. When I go to the pediatrician with my daughter, and she's like this big, right? What is one of the questions they ask me? Are you doing tummy time? Or how's tummy time going? Right? Does everybody know what tummy time is? You put the baby on the belly, they go, right? Why do we do that?
To
To
get 'em-
laugh, it is funny.
Yeah, to get them to hold their heads up.
Yes.
Roll over.
You're building all of those skeletal muscles, so they're going to be able to meet the developmental milestones later. What happens to our children where parents don't do tummy time, where they're in their crib on their back?
You get a flat head.
Yeah.
They do get a flat head.
Their head's flat right here. 'cause
You're
they're
supposed to structure their heads.
You gotta rub it.
Yeah.
Well, I know,
They're
but if
laying
you're not
flat
paying,
on their head all
if
the
you're
time,
laying, if
they're
you're
not.
keeping them there, I'm talking about bad scenarios.
Oh,
Where
okay.
you have that
Bad,
child
okay.
in there that's not being
Constantly, okay.
taken care
Yeah.
of. The
Alright.
skull's not going to curve.
No, it's not.
Did I tell the CIA story last time? So that's like part of, so in Soviet Russia, right, they had tons of orphanages.
Yeah.
And the Soviet Union, the government would go in and pluck out the men and put them into service. So the boys would turn to men, and guess where they would send the men? To the United States to be spies. So the CIA, one of their things when they were recruiting or were suspicious of somebody is they would check the backs of their heads. Because oftentimes a Russian spy from an orphanage wouldn't be played with and the backs of their heads were flat.
Shut up.
Nuh-uh.
I didn't know
Said,
that.
"Nuh-uh."
Right?
How do you know that? We might remember that one.
How do I? I don't know. Why do I know that?
Why do you know that, right?
I'm the CIA plant. They're on me. Right? But yeah, isn't that crazy?
Yeah.
Like, that's just like
Yeah.
an impactful thing. Like, it's just an act. You know, it's a cool story. I always like telling that if I remember to tell it. Okay, so that's what's happening in our motor function. It's very important to do that, right? So we can track those developmental milestones as we go. Right? So imagine you're crawling later, you're walking later. What else is happening later? Right? You're 3 years old. You're not a good walker, a good runner. What's preschool going to be like? Right? All that motor function is very important to do that. Your fine motor skills. Right? Here's your pencil color. We know kids. And the path starts then, is kind of my point, right? So you're already beginning here. If you have an absent parent, right, that's not giving you that attention you need to start these things, you're going to be further behind, right? In terms of peer supports. And we know that you're not being raised in a vacuum either, right? So there's all the social influences that are going to come into play as we're going to talk a little bit about that as we move forward, okay? So inside was that $100 bill that Kim was so nice to hand out to everybody. That was our limbic system. That's our emotional center, right? That's inside the between ears. That's where we find our amygdala. Good. Our amygdala, right? Does anybody remember what the amygdala does? Remember, it was like this little almond-shaped thing that's between your ears. What's its role? What's its job?
It's like the rational center, right? Doesn't it try to rationalize your emotions?
Not before that.
Oh, fight or flight.
Oh, yes,
It is essentially your smoke detector
You're welcome, Mary.
that turns on your fire alarm, right? So it's constantly scanning your environment for weird things that are off. Remember, I made fun of myself, right? If I was wearing big giant clown shoes, your amygdala would look at my clown shoes and go, "This guy's a weirdo," immediately. Without you even giving me 2 seconds of chances. And it would take me the entire training to get you past that. Well, maybe he's not that weird, but I still don't know why he's wearing clown shoes. That's still weird. Right? And that's where our biases come from. So our amygdala has been trained since they were little babies, that it was grown, on all of our stimulus and everything that we are surrounded with, to base judgment on what's given to us immediately. That's what it is. We have to recognize that we have that innate in us, and it's good, bad, and indifferent. So it doesn't matter if, like, Kylie Johnson and I were raised in the woods, right? Now, we're healthier adults now, and we've been exposed to a lot of different things, so we can pretty much manage anywhere we go. Maybe, all right? We try. At least we have some skills to get us through that stuff. But maybe when I was like 9, right, and you dumped me in like a public school in New York City,
Oh, God.
right? My amygdala would have been firing 24/7, and I would have not been able to do school. Is that fair?
Yeah.
Right, because everything is different than what I'm used to. But the same thing goes if I took a kid out of New York City public school and put him in rural Pennsylvania in a school, that looks way different, right? So the amygdala's gonna be fired. All your biases come with that. Okay, so it's always scanning the environment for strange things. And it's very important to have that because it keeps us alive. Right? So if we see danger, our body responds. How does our body respond? Does anybody remember that?
Heart increases. Heart rate increases, not your heart. Right, I mean, your nerves just start, you get amped up. Your adrenaline starts running.
Yeah, it's our
You go to fight or flight.
We talked about this axis. Remember, we had Dr. Harris do the video with a red dress. She talked about the scary bear. The bear that came home every night, right? So we know when we're out in the woods and we see a bear, our body responds to the HPA axis, right? So our adrenal glands in our kidneys, and it pumps that's toxic stress in our body, or it's actually good stress then. And we're gonna fight the bear, run from the bear, give up, let me eat me bear, whatever. However our body's responding in that moment, right? This is an automatic thing, it just happens, right? And that's a good thing, but when we found that toxic stress, the bad stuff is when that bear comes home every night, and that system's going on over and over and over again, and we start seeing all the problems later in life from that, right? Remember that? Okay, cool. So that's what's happening in our developmental window here, our emotional function at 6 months to 30 months. We're learning our emotions. So that's like your terrible twos, your nightmare threes, I call them. Like they're way worse than the twos because now they got some personality. They're sassy. I told the story about my daughter and her cookie. You remember that? She wanted a cookie for breakfast. I told that story. She planked and was like, "What are you doing?" And she went and made her cookie, but she was learning how to go up, right, and then come down because I was responding in a healthy way. I was saying, "No, I'm making you oatmeal," and then I ignore her, and she saw how far she could take it, and then she self-regulated, came back down. But we know in situations when we have parents that are unhealthy, right, dealing with their own stuff, with a child that's pestering them, how do they respond?
Give them a cookie.
They could give them a cookie. Yeah. Appeasement, right? And that's the kid that's never heard no. They turn into fun adults, don't they?
They do.
Fun children too.
Fun children, right? The whole way through, right? Right? Or then it becomes that abusive situation, right? Where now we have the toxic stress. The bear, that parent turns into that bear. That stress system's activated for that child. Up and they never get back down. Right? We talked a little bit about that too. Okay, so that's what's happening. So that's early on again, and the reason I'm showing this one today is because we have to remember that this is all baked in the cake. This has already happened in 48 months. These are critical windows of development. If something is wrong here, you're going to see lasting effects throughout into their adulthood.
Do you think around 3 years old is too late, or can you make change in the 3-year-old?
There's always the hope to make the change. There is absolute change for resiliency and making those things happen. We're gonna talk about that too.
Okay.
What do we do? How do we help this? But the reason I stress so importantly on this is for our care, for us. We need to understand this because we are gonna get supremely frustrated, irritated when behaviors don't change. When we look at that and we just go, why don't you just stop doing that? Right? This makes total sense to me. Why don't you just, are you a knucklehead? Stop doing that.
Makes sense to me.
Right. But guess what? Because of everything that's come with them, it's very difficult for them to make those changes quickly. It's like hardwired into their brain. We're going to watch a video right now. Now I'm thinking about it. It's a perfect way to go. We didn't watch the backwards bike, did we?
No.
Sweet.
It's okay.
What'd you say? I missed it.
I said, I don't remember shit. My brain just did
I
not.
told you.
My brain did not keep anything. It's because I'm old.
I remember the bear.
I'm old and
I
tired.
remember the bear.
I vaguely remember the bear. The more you talked about it, it kind of kicked in there.
Welcome back to Smarter Every Day. You've heard people say it's just like riding a bike, meaning it's really easy.
It's like 5 minutes, probably.
Right? But I did something. I did something that damaged my mom. It happened on the streets of Amsterdam, and I got really scared, honestly. I can't ride a bike like you can anymore. Before I show you the video of what happened, I need to tell you the backstory. Like many 6-year-olds with a MacGyver mullet, I learned how to ride a bike when I was really young. I had learned a life skill, and I was really proud of it. Everything changed, though, when my friend Barney called me 25 years later. Where I work, the welders are geniuses, and they like to play jokes on the engineers. He had a challenge for me. He had built a special bicycle, and he wanted me to try to ride it. He had only changed one thing. When you turn the handlebar to the left, the wheel goes to the right. When you turn it to the right, the wheel goes to the left.
Oh, no.
I thought this would be easy, so I hopped on the bike ready to demonstrate how quickly I could conquer this.
And here he is, ladies and gentlemen, Mr. Justin Salmon. First attempt riding the bicycle. So, after I got that.
I couldn't do it. You can see that I'm laughing, but I'm actually really frustrated. In this moment, I had a really deep revelation. My thinking was in a rut. This bike revealed a very deep truth to me. I had the knowledge of how to operate the bike, but I did not have the understanding. Therefore, knowledge is not understanding. Look, I know what you're probably thinking. Destin's probably just an uncoordinated engineer and can't do it. But that's not the case at all. The algorithm that's associated with riding a bike in your brain It's just that complicated. Think about it. Downward force on the pedals, leaning your whole body, pulling and pushing the handlebars, gyroscopic precession in the wheels. Every single force is part of this algorithm. And if you change any one part, it affects the entire control system. I do not make definitive statements that often, but I'm telling you right now, you cannot ride this bicycle. You might think you can, but you can't. I know this because I'm often asked to speak at universities and conferences, and I take the bike with me. It's always the same. People think they're going to try some trick, or they're just going to power through it. It doesn't work. Your brain cannot handle this. For instance, this guy, I offered him $200 just to ride his bike 10 feet across the stage. Everybody thought he could do it.
No, you didn't understand. You didn't understand. So, this way. Alright, so, whenever you're ready.
You would think it would be like fun.
Keep your feet on the pedal. Go.
Once you have a rigid way of thinking in your head, sometimes you cannot change that, even if you want to. So here's what I did. It was a personal challenge. I stayed out here in this driveway and I practiced about 5 minutes every day. My neighbors made fun of me. I had many wrecks, but after 8 months, this happened. One day I couldn't ride the bike, and the next day I could. It was like I could feel some kind of pathway in my brain that was now unlocked. It was really weird though. It's like there's this trail in my brain, but if I wasn't paying close enough attention to it, my brain would easily lose that neural path and jump back onto the old road it was more familiar with. Any small distractions at all, like a cell phone ringing in my pocket, would instantly throw my brain back to the old control algorithm and I would wreck, but at least I could ride it. My son is the closest person to me genetically, and he's been riding a normal bike for 3 years. That's over half his life. I wanted to know how long it would take him to learn how to ride a backwards bike, so I told him if he learned how to ride a backwards bike, he could go with me to Australia and meet a real astronaut.
Are you gonna give up? Go ahead. This is how it starts. Look at this. This is such a big deal. Get up, you got it. Or did you see his brain get it? So he, in how many weeks have we been doing this? 2 weeks? In 2 weeks, he did something that took me 8 months to do, which demonstrates that a child has more neuroplasticity, am I even saying that right, than an adult.
It's clear from this experiment that children have a much more plastic brain than adults. That's why the best time to learn a language is when you're a young child.
Alright, today's bike vlog. I can ride smooth, I can ride fast. I'm thinking the experiment is over. Okay, now I'm in Amsterdam, a city that has more bicycles than people. The question is, can I ride a normal bike now? I mean, I've spent all this time unlearning how to ride a bike. If I go back and try to ride a normal one, will my brain mess up? So I've tweeted a Smarter Everyday meetup, if you will, and I'm going to see if somebody brings a bicycle, and I'm going to try to ride a normal bike.
This was one of the most frustrating moments of my life. I had ridden a normal bike since I was 6, but in this moment, I couldn't do it anymore. I had set out to prove that I could free my brain from a cognitive bias. But at this point, I'm pretty sure that all I proved is that I can only redesignate that bias.
So what you're not seeing is just a group of people here looking at me, looking at the strange American. I can't ride a bike because they think I'm dumb. Because I've learned and unlearned. Alright.
After 20 minutes of making a fool out of myself, suddenly my brain clicked back into the old algorithm. I can't explain it, but it happened in a very specific moment.
I got it. I'm back. Oh, wait. I got it. Okay, here it is. There's the moment. Okay, I heard about it.
I tried to explain this to the people around me, and they just didn't get it. They thought I was faking the previous 20 minutes, and I couldn't get anybody to believe me.
That look, I think that did it. Just your face. I'm back. You don't believe me. You think I'm lying, don't you? I'm not lying.
I felt like the only person on the planet who had ever unlearned how to ride a bike. and I couldn't articulate it to anyone because everybody just knew that you can't forget how to ride a bike. So I learned 3 things from this experiment. I learned that welders are often smarter than engineers. I learned that knowledge does not equal understanding. And I learned that truth is truth, no matter what I think about it. So be very careful how you interpret things, because you're looking at the world with a bias, whether you think you are or not.
All right. Why do I show that video?
We don't know why.
I bet you're gonna tell us.
I will. Well, I'm going if you don't figure it out. I bet you will.
So do you think after he relearned how to ride the bike the right way, that he can go right back to riding it? Like it would just innately pick up in his head and
So-
he'd be like, oh, my body's gonna catch on real fast. Cause I wish he would have gone back to the other
backwards
bike
bike.
and see if he could ride.
So yes, he
it.
still knows how to ride the backwards bike.
Okay.
But it happened, he has to do it like he did the normal bike. So he gets on the backwards bike and he goes like this, and like it takes him a minute to like find that pathway in his brain to do it again. And then when he switches back, he goes this. So yes, there's other videos of him like doing that, so you can check that out. But why do I show that? Why is that relevant to what we were talking about?
Cause your brain learns something a certain way, and it's hard to unlearn what you've already learned. So even when you're learning something new, your old ways are still stuck there.
Good. Yeah, so, go ahead.
I was just gonna say, your brain likes to travel down the same pathways over and over and over, and it becomes automatic. So then to try and do it differently, it takes training, and then sometimes, like he said, you go back to the old way because that's just the beaten path that you always used.
Right, so this is my example, right? There's one way to get to the gym from my house, but on that same way to get to the gym, I could go to the grocery store that same way. So when I go that way and I'm not thinking, where do I end up? At the gym, and I want to go to the grocery store.
Yep.
Damn it! Right? This happened to me multiple times. Because I'm just doing it, I'm thinking about something else, and all of a sudden I pass that street, and I'm down that road, and I'm like, I'm not going to the gym. I need to turn around and go back to the grocery store. Right? This happens to me often. I'm sure you've all done that. Right? But that's like, so what is called, our brains have like these things called neurons. And those are those pathways that you're talking about. And a mature neuron is essentially like a superhighway. Right? You're on it, everything's going that direction super fast. That's him riding the regular bike. That was in his brain, right? He can hop on that thing. We all could do that if we learned how to ride a bike. Hop on that bike and go, right? He had to make new neurons to ride this bike. So that's change. People don't like change, right? We know this every day here. So they don't have the ability in their brains to make that change. They're dealing with baby neurons. And they just go, whoosh. You have a super highway pathway that just goes, just go over here, it's easier. And then you have this also, where you don't have the healthiest brain because of things that have happened to you. Do you see the conundrum that we're in? Yes?
Yes.
Okay. So how do we support, as people that want to help people, how do we support this? What do we do?
Repetition?
Yeah, right? We have to start mimicking that learned behavior. But there's other things that get in the way of that too. Right?
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So there's a whole lot of temptation to go onto the superhighway, to ride the regular bike. How long did it take him to ride the backwards bike?
8 months.
8 flippin' months. To ride a backwards bike, who cares? How long do your clients stay here?
Average 6. Maybe.
6?
Average maybe?
Depends.
6 to 14,
Okay.
3 to 14.
Right. So not that
A week
long.
to 14.
So think about how long it took him to relearn a simple task. And we're asking people that we're here to fix their entire lifestyle in a couple of months. Everything that you've ever learned, everything you've ever done, and everything that your brain tells you, this is what I need, is all going to be fixed in a couple of months. And you're going to be fine. And then we see it not working. And what do we feel in us?
Annoyed.
Yeah.
Annoyed. Then we start getting our emotions. Frustrated, irritated, angry. What's the point? This is ridiculous. Oh, here comes another one.
Yeah.
Right?
He just knows, don't he?
We don't say that far.
But you think it.
Oh, they say it too.
Yeah, you know.
We usually just text that.
I cannot.
But again, think about the reason why we're talking about this, though, is the importance to understand this. This is what we're here for, is to help. And if we have to get out of our own way to help. If we're clouded by all of this stuff that our amygdala is saying, and our pathway, right? Our brain's like, just stop using, bro. Sister, stop using. Right? If it was that easy, we wouldn't be here. Awesome. But it's not, because we have all of this stuff that we have to filter through. The dude took 8 months to relearn to ride a bike. We're asking somebody to change everything in a couple of months. Their whole experience in life, everything. And we're not even talking about the science and what's happening in addiction. We're not even bringing that up right now. This is before we even get there. Right? To how that attaches to all of the pleasure pathways and reward centers of your brain. Oh yeah, that's better. Okay. Right? All of this stuff's happening. So it's a miracle when people get through it. As far as I'm concerned. And when I see like little kids get through their traumas and what they've dealt with and be productive and successful, it's a miracle. There's just so many factors rooting against them and going against them, and just their old biological structures against them. Okay? Alright, we're doing okay?
Yeah.
Okay. Let's see where I want to go with this for today. We'll start. We'll go here. Okay. I didn't show this, did I? It's kind of our behavior cycle. So think about our amygdala again in our brain, right? It's constantly scanning the environment. And one thing I forgot to mention is, remember we had this prefrontal cortex, our thinking part of our brain, right? That's behind our forehead. Remember I asked if your dog had a big forehead? And do deer have big foreheads? And you all said no, they don't. We all agreed that deer and dogs can't build spaceships. Because Disney's not real. That's all we can. Humans made Disney, not animals. Okay? Bambi doesn't talk. Bambi just wants to eat.
Nice.
I know, I'm so sorry. Right? But that's the truth of the things, right? It's okay. We're gonna get through this together. Well, that's good though, because then Bambi's dad didn't really die. So everything's fine.
This is in my backyard.
Right. That's right. See? I saw like 10 of them on the drive here, because they're all in rut now. They're chasing doe around. Their mouths are open. So you want to talk about this. There's a great example. So like the understanding of what deer do when they're reproducing. They have some prefrontal cortex. They have a cortex up here that makes them think sort of logically, right? They use their senses. They have a super good nose, right? They have great hearing and great eyesight to keep them alive. So they'll smell something and they'll just do this and they'll take off. But during the rut, they're dumb because they're being run by their amygdala. So you see a lot of dead deer on the road now. Notice on your way home, because they're dumb. Right now they're just chasing tail. Part of our language, but that's all they're doing. They're running around with their mouths open, chasing doe. And they don't care what's around them.
We got some of those here, running around here chasing tail.
Same thing.
So they're dumb too.
Exactly.
In the moment, they're not thinking. They're thinking with their their reptilian brain. Right? A buck isn't smart enough when he's running around chasing that doe to realize, oh, this is that road that I don't like to go across. They just go, oh, the deer went that way. I'm going too. And now I'm dead.
So why don't they stop and look to stare at the headlights then? Why do they do that?
Well, that's another biological response because they're like,
Yeah,
"Hey,
it's
deer
like,
headlight. That's their fight or flight system going."
Be lucky we
they are dumb.
Be lucky we don't have that.
They're beautiful, but they're dumb.
Yeah, so especially now. So this is a great example. I don't know how my brain went that way. Probably 'cause I just saw him running around and I thought it was funny. Right? So that's what's happening in our brain. So our brain doesn't communicate when we're overloaded with stress and hormones. Right? We don't think logically. Right? Have we ever, this is probably gonna get too personal, right? But have like chosen to hook up with somebody that you regretted?
Oh, Lord
Oh,
Jesus.
definitely.
Yes, Lord.
Do you want us to write that down?
Right? Now were you
Write down those names.
Yeah, we can write that those.
right? Now were you this is very
I'll draw a
inappropriate
blank
for me
on
to
that
say,
too.
but it's real though, right? Were we in the right mind of doing that?
Can we make it a
Usually?
competition?
Like were we like logically thinking through the steps?
I have definitely said this is a bad choice before I do it. Sure
You
have.
did it anyway because
Yes, I
that
did.
biological system of yours is going choo choo. Let's go.
Let's go.
Overdrive.
Do
Let's
it.
roll. Right? Let's do it. We have to. That's that pleasure reward system again.
Mm-hmm.
Right? That's going on. Your nucleus accumbens is the scientific term.
Did you wake up and you say,
It's
what
okay.
did you do?
That's what you go, right? I knew that you would go. It's okay. I know, now that I'm reliving all of it. It's great. The prefrontal cortex has shut down over here. We're living in the past. Okay. So again, the assumption of danger, that's what, think about our populations that we work with. Right? Are they used to being in calm, safe environments?
No.
No. So their experience is what? Danger.
Yes.
And they're going to respond to every situation first with that assumption of danger, right? What's an assumption mean? You're predicting, right? I bet this is going to happen just by your environment. What's going to happen, right? So based on what's happened to you in the past and all of that developmental things, your amygdala is running on overdrive all the time, and you're looking at your environment and you're saying, everything sucks. Everything is a danger to me. So anything that happens to me, I have to gauge as an assumption of danger, which leads to a psychological and behavioral response. Okay, so this is maybe a client that you're working with who doesn't like to be touched. Do you have any of them? Don't touch me.
Yeah.
Right? If you're in their space, get away from me. We have people say that, those kinds of things. Right? Why is that there? The assumption of danger is you're there to harm me. So I'm going to respond some way. If they're feeling good today, maybe it's A, please just step away. Or it could be what?
Back the fuck up.
Yes. Right? And that's in relying on alternative adaptation. Right? Instead of please, I like my bubble, you respond that way. And how is that taken as you from the caregiver typically?
I mean, I feel like in our position, it's an understandable thing
Because you're trained and you understand, you empathize and you're there.
But when they are connecting with each other, client on client, it causes tension. Sometimes it causes arguments.
Good, because they can take it personally.
Well, yes, and they do a lot.
Right, and society in general, right? If you're walking down the street and somebody jumps in the bushes because you're walking by them, you're gonna be like, what's going on? Right, that's an alternative adaptation that I wasn't expecting.
Smoking something.
Right? What?
We're gonna think they're smoking
We're gonna
something.
think they're
Right, you're like, what is happening here? Why are they responding this way? Go ahead.
Explain I don't understand what you mean by reliance on alternative adaptation.
So that's the response that we see that's abnormal, quote abnormal. So instead of, if I'm in your bubble, and you just say, I just like my bubble, can you step back please?
Okay.
Fine, I can accept that as like a rational thinking person, right? But the alternative, because of they're running on the assumption of danger, they're going to have a behavioral response. Again, that amygdala is going to fire and it's going to respond to a way to get away from me. So it might be a push, it might be a yell, might be whatever to get that person to respond to you how that's happened to you in the past. Does that make sense?
So ultimately, like when they're following their little paths, like this is the path that's already built.
This is the path that's built. Right.
I feel afraid, this is how I react.
Yep. Got it. You're connecting all of the pieces that much better than I was saying. Right, so everything from that superhighway to this is the same process, right? It's the same thing. We have a way that we've responded to our environment, to our stimulus that's happening to us. And this is just a cycle that's going over and over and over again. Right? So how is this then? How does this reinforce this?
But do you think sometimes, and I'm just trying to, like, it's not always like how you decide if you learn, it's a learned behavior, like you see your parents and you feel they're in danger and they do something like, I hit somebody instead of like having a conversation, is that then a learned, like, that's gonna be my alternative? Because when I
Yes.
feel I'm in danger, that's how I saw my parents, or whatever, I
Yeah,
don't know,
right.
whatever the example.
Absolutely. So it's
We're just trying to process, like, cause you don't just come up with those all on your own, you know what I mean? Like how you're gonna,
Right.
you might, I don't know.
everything is half and half, right? It's nature, nurture.
Okay.
So what's happening in our environment affects this. What's innate in us affects this also. So what's our like biological response to safety? Is either run away, fight it, or fight, flight, freeze, submit, whatever we're doing. That's that. That's our assumption of danger. How do we respond to that? We all in here would probably respond to danger differently. Right? It's fair enough to say. So based on what we've learned, it's not all the same for every human. If it was that way, it'd be easy to treat.
Yeah.
Right? Because we just know, okay, we know how people respond when they're in this situation, fix it. But we don't know that because of everything they've been through, or their past, their histories, all those kinds of things. So that all has to come and play with it. So when you're coming around the circle, you have the reliance on adaptation, assumption of danger. How do they feed into each other?
So when they have these alternative adaptations of behavior that generally are more negative, it's, you know, you're starting that fight or flight thing, so they're amped up and their adrenaline's going, and that's gonna make them feel even more so like anything that they come in contact with is gonna be dangerous, and it's gonna become like a cycle.
Yes.
It's just gonna keep going.
Very good. So you're this person. You responded in a negative way to another person. It's not negative to you because you're just surviving, right? This is how I respond to the situation. But the person you're responding to responds to you how? If you tell somebody to go F themselves, what does that person say to you? Are they like, oh, so nice to see you?
Well, Kim would.
Why would you say that hurt my feelings? Don't say that.
She would, and she would say it just like that.
It's funny. That's
She's
But they don't say that to her.
ever. No, they don't say
right,
that.
but you'll get that response back that reinforces everything's a danger. I can't relate to anybody because I'm always in this chaos. My amygdala is running the show. My logical thinking part of the brain has been quiet for a long time. Right? We talk about homeostasis. We'll go a little bit deeper. Homeostasis is being neutral. Base level. I am fed. I'm hydrated. I slept. Good. Does everybody have those days sometimes? It's homeostasis. I'm feeling okay. I don't have medical problems right now. It's like I'm here. I'm neutral. Okay? When we talk about people that have experienced or experiencing high levels of trauma, these people live here. Right? It's like the 0 to 60. Think about your car speedometer. Okay? So oftentimes when I talk to staff, I don't know if you mentioned this last time, when I talk to my people who are working with adults and children, what led up to the behavior that we didn't like? Oh, nothing. It's like a light switch. They're calm and then they're not. They're calm and then they're not. And that's not how they are. They're not here. And then you say, please don't do that. And they go, yeah! They live here. They're called like the vibrating person. They live between 55 and 60. 55 and 60. So every little thing sets them off. They never get down to the homeostasis where they can handle things.
Well, and if we're kind of in this cycle going around and around, it doesn't ever give them a chance to get
You don't have a moment to stop and go, okay, I can get myself down. So a lot of what we need, that's what we do, believe it or not, is we allow people to come down and give them more time before they get up to 60 and do things that are not healthy for them.
I'm sorry. Go ahead.
I turn to you first. Go ahead.
So once a change occurs, right, the psychological and behavioral response is different. So I mean, right? So the assumption of danger is gradually going away, right?
Correct.
Okay, so
The whole thing's different then.
right, okay, all right.
So the response would be different then.
Right, so yeah, okay.
Right, so you're not
I just need to get this
assuming.
in my head.
Yeah, so if you're running things with your logical part of your brain,
Right.
like you are right now, you're thinking through this. Seriously, you are. You're thinking through this, right? If you were in a bad spot right now, you wouldn't be talking to me, right? If you were not in a healthy position, you'd just sit there like this today. Because your amygdala would be running the show. You'd be irritated. You'd find every reason to think that I was full of it. That's what would happen. That's what everybody would do here, right? That they would be that checked out piece. That's that I'm not present, I'm not engaged, I'm not doing those kinds of things. I'm being run by my emotions versus that logical piece. Right? So if you're looking at the world through that logical piece, your response to things is going to be completely different. Right? Like if you're in a bad position today, Kim, which apparently never happens, right? But if you're in a bad spot today, and I came in and I kept asking you questions, and kept like bugging you, it would eventually get to here. It would eventually get to here, and the next time I come, I would be this. I would be your irritation danger, quote unquote. Right? Oh God, this guy.
And then you would respond and be like, "You're a meanie."
You're so mean.
You're hurting my feelings.
That hurt my feelings.
So my question, oh, sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, go ahead. Do you still have it? What you want to say?
Yeah, I was just gonna say, it's why it's so important for us to remember though, like when you're doing the dial, example that you gave, we don't just have one person there, we have everybody.
Yes.
The whole environment is like that, and they're coming from chaos, they're creating chaos, and that's why, because they're always at that high level, and every little thing sets them off, and we set each other off.
Yeah, let me show you. I just want to get a slide up. It's nerdy as hell, but just deal with it. I'll go through it. Go ahead, what were you going to say?
I was just gonna say, so if we don't reinforce that assumed danger, what happens to that person that is already doing the action? Does it start to diffuse that or not?
So what do you
So
mean?
let's say like we get the response and she said, "Get the F away from me," and we don't respond back like negatively, and we're like, you know, "How are you doing today?" Or calmly, like, how does that affect
Right.
that person's assumption at that point, or maybe?
So that's the work.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
That's our work. That's where it hits the fan, right? That's where if we are consistent in our responses, right? If we're able to do that over time, again, it takes a long time for the brain to change.
Right.
We've all agreed on that. In our own personal life, it's all different, right? But over time, those responses, they see you, and that automatically goes, that's called a relationship. We're going to talk a lot about that today.
I mean, and that probably helps when Kim responds how she does, because then they have to be like, oh, I'm like, maybe I didn't realize I was hurting someone's feelings. That's how they respond. And
Yep.
then they know next time they come to her,
And
they maybe
over,
won't want to do that
Yeah.
over a time period where they build that relationship where they're like, they really like
So,
him or whatever.
yeah, we can go back to the teacher example, right? You remember in school, the good teachers, when they're good because they engage the kids and they're consistent in their responses. Every day you walked into that classroom, it was the same. That person was fine. And you knew that it wasn't a day, like they weren't up and down. And you knew that when you sit in the class and all the other kids understood that, right? But in the ones that weren't good teachers, it was always chaos. The students weren't listening. The teacher was up and down. Sometimes they're yelling, sometimes they weren't there, sometimes they were disengaged, right? Sometimes they're irritated. All those kinds of things are happening. It's the same way with us and how we're responding to our clients.
Well, and I feel like that can very much mirror here at times, thinking as the clients, the clients being the classroom and us being teachers, because they act different ways with different people
Yes.
and different shifts and different.
It's
Yes.
100%
Like,
the same. I can tell you that.
Huh?
It's just 100%.
Yeah, I mean, like when we're here during the day, they're not near as bad as once we all leave and the second shift takes over and it's just them.
Your participation award. You keep getting stuff.
Brains.
Brains.
A lot of brains.
She's gonna put them up in her office, like, just like,
It's like helmet stickers in football. I'm just doing a great
Over here,
job.
trophies.
That's right, little brain trophies. Are we good there? So here's the nerd thing. Just bear with me. We have two lines that go like this. Okay? This is a line for a person that is quote unquote resilient. This is a person that may have gone through some things. Okay? But we're kind of resting down here. This is our resting line. This is where we start our day. Right here. This is the time. This is time. This way. Okay? This is intensity. Okay? So we start our day like right here. We're okay. We wake up. We kind of annoyed, but we can roll through it, right? And then as our day goes, we just might get a little more stimulated as it goes. But we don't respond to many things, right? So all these red arrows, okay, are things that may annoy us during the day. So email from somebody you hate. God, leave me alone. Right? Another one from them. Another nag from Kylie. Nag, 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 nag. Right? On and on it goes, it goes, it goes. But we're kind of healthy, right? How often do our day that we just go, okay, we're gonna let that go, right? That's these dotted lines. We're okay. And then we skip this one, skip this one, skip this one. I'm not good. That one annoyed me a little bit. And see how we slowly build up to this crescendo where we are. But look, we're still not really that high. We're okay, right? We may have gone from our homeostasis to like 15. And we can quickly get back down to neutral when we get in our car and drive home.
As soon as our shift's over, we go home.
Shift's over home, and I'm over it. I'm done. Right? But then you have our person that is high risk, right? Has gone through a lot of trauma, currently going through trauma, all these kinds of things, and they're starting way up here in the level of intensity. Way higher than somebody that has just gone through a whole day of stress can even relate to. Mm-hmm. They're starting there. Hello, I woke up. And here I am, bang, 55. But look what happens. Everything that happens to me, I respond to. Boom, 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 boom. It gets me up into that level. Every little thing. So we go from 55 to 60, 55 to 60, 55 to 60, 55 to 60. You never get that opportunity to come back down to 0 and calm, because every little thing, because your amygdala's running the show, is an assumption of danger to you. And your body's responding without thinking with that toxic stress. Cortisol, blah, 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 those hormones. They're going in your body, causing your heart rate to increase, your breathing to increase, your muscles to tense, all that stuff that's not healthy all day long. And then it happens again the next day. Maybe you don't sleep. Everything compounds. Does that make a little bit of sense? Mm-hmm. Okay. Cool. What time are we done?
1.
Oh my god, we didn't take a break.
No, we're good. I didn't need to speak for everybody.
Yeah, thanks, kid.
Okay.
Seems like we're good.
Clients been bothering us and come in. This is great. This is like the relaxing part of the day.
Right. Let's see where I want to go here.
So are you gonna give us some tips and tricks that we can do to de-escalate a client who is going from 55 to 60? Like, I'm not
Let's
a
do it.
counselor, so I can't do what Jen and Steph,
Yep, let's talk about it right now.
but I still have an influence.
Yes, so let's talk about in the next 20 minutes, and we'll bridge this to next time. Okay? We do a lot of we have to go backwards and reframe everything again, because that's, in my experience doing these learning collaboratives with folks, is we always have to go back to that basics, because if we start jumping to fixing behavior, it doesn't make sense. Right? Because I'll start telling you stuff, and you're like, that's the dumbest thing I've ever heard. But it makes sense in context for understanding how the brain's structured and how it works.
Right.
Okay? Alright, so thank you for bearing with me. So this is what our day should look like if everything's cruising. You have 80% of your day is prevention. How do we not? What steps do we have in place to create an environment where they're not the other way around? If your day is 80% just intervening into all the fires that are happening, nothing's getting done.
Right.
True?
Right.
If we have those days, it's totally fine. This is like the goal. Right? This is our dream world. If 20% of our day is just like, oh yeah, okay, let's help you. Instead of 80% of it going haywire. Right? I've seen it, it's amazing when this happens. Because because everything becomes isolated then. It's not like a million things happening. Right? It's just one or two and you can and everybody, that's what we're built for, we can handle that stuff. You had a question?
No, I was gonna just say that, you know, the prevention comes from their individual sessions with us and the groups that they have to attend and
All those support factors, but it can all kind of go into an entire, call it like a milieu. So like the entire experience of that person coming in your doors. Right, this is stuff that you guys can think about. I'm not telling you what to do, just throwing things out there for you. Right, so what does that look like? So what is our amygdala like? What is it like? How do we tell it to shut up? That's our goal.
That's a good question.
Right? It likes to feel safe.
I remember that.
It likes to feel wanted. And it wants to be successful. If it has those three feels, it goes, things are fine. But it's insidious though, because your safety is not the same as somebody else's safety.
Right.
And your wanting is not the same as their wanting, and your success is not their success. Right? So we have to figure out what drives that individual person to feel safe, wanted, successful. Do you think a person walking in here the first time feels safe?
no.
But you guys do. When do you come to work, you feel safe?
I did it the first time I came here.
I'm in the
And
first
we're
one.
also in different positions as them, that, you know, from the.
Right, it's a whole different scenario. So like that presumption, oh well, and by just saying this is a safe place, it doesn't mean anything. To that amygdala, the amygdala's like, whatever, I'm still living in 1982, right? And I want some drugs. Right? That's what it's saying. I don't know. Or I want to do this behavior because that's what it's telling me to do. So what does it want to do? We need to maximize our structure and predictability. That's one thing we do. How do we create an environment where everybody knows what's going to happen next?
Consistency.
Yes. So what does that do to the amygdala?
It knows what's gonna happen.
So guess what it doesn't have to do?
It doesn't have to guess, it doesn't have to stress
It
about it.
doesn't have to assume danger because they know what's going to happen next. So when we deviate from our schedules, do we see increases in behaviors?
Absolutely.
Right? And sometimes that happens, that's fine, that you can't control everything. Right? But how are we responding to those kinds of things? Right? When we work with like little kids, like the fire drills are a nightmare. Because that's happening twice a year. Right? And when it happens, it's like, our amygdala's going. No matter how many times we prepare that, it doesn't matter. Certain kids, their amygdala's going to fire go.
It happens
Same
like that
results.
here too.
Yeah. Right, because it's off the consistency, our predictable kind of approach. So, how do we make things predictable?
Schedules.
Okay.
Rules.
Routines.
Communicate it.
Communication.
So my big thing is I love schedules, and I love all the routines and the rituals and like a rhythm that comes with that. But a lot of people that we work with don't know how to do that.
Right.
Right? And then we get really upset when we're saying it's 8:10 and we're supposed to be doing this, but here you are in your jam still.
That happened in check-in. Everybody was in their jam.
There you go. I can feel this.
Jam. I love that.
I just know.
I prefer to call them comfies.
whatever,
I
right?
think
They
a
was
lot
in
of
their
their,
comfy
I
jam
think a
jams
lot of
today.
their structure and feeling safe too, part of it is repetition on our part.
Yes.
You know, we can't just say it once and then expect it 2 weeks later, they're
Gonna be doing
gonna
it.
remember and still be doing it. We
The-
have to, because we're creating new behaviors and then we have to repeat.
The biggest, yeah, go ahead.
And on top of that, staff all has to be on the same page.
Yeah.
If you've got staff in the evening allowing clients to do whatever they want to do, then when we come in the next day,
Yep.
you know, well,
It's-
she let me do that last night.
It's like sending your kid to stepdads,
Right.
where you're gonna have to eat
Yeah.
Pop Rocks all weekend and drink Mountain Dews. Then you got your
Yes.
house.
Yep, it's just like that.
Just
It's
like
just
that.
like that.
Yep, it's just like that. You know what Henry does on the
We
weekend.
know what Henry does on the weekends, and it is not good.
Well, I got to go to the store. Well,
Right.
And I mean, it's super annoying for us when every other week we have to be like,
Yep.
you are not allowed to take naps during the day without permission from your counselor, and then later that day we walk around and have
They're
our
all
house.
napping.
So start thinking about these things that are frequent. And how do you turn it from that intervention piece, where you're going around waking everybody up,
Yeah.
to getting it to a point where they know they don't do that. So maybe it's every day. When you're with them, remember we're not doing naps. No naps. Why don't we do naps? Without permission? Because, give them a reason. Whatever your reasons are, I don't care. You don't just say because it's a rule.
Well, I don't know what else to tell them,
Because
it's a rule.
It's part of being a productive adult. I mean, we all don't lay down and take naps in the middle of the
Shouldn't
day.
be in the habit of just sleeping all day.
Yeah.
Right.
How do
So
you
we're
do
trying.
that?
So
Yeah, we're
a
doing
way to
something.
handle that is we're trying to get away from removing yourself from the daily activities that we want you to be successful with.
Fair enough.
So how can we get so one of our I'm gonna say rules. One of our rules or one of our expectations. There's a good word to use. Substitute rules and expectations. One of our expectations is that we don't nap during the day without permission. Right? Now there are times that you can say there are times where you can take a nap. I don't know, I'm making this up. You're feeling ill.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But they have
Fine.
But they have to approve.
Right. We will talk through that. We'll get that. There's an option there for you, so it's not like you're the tyrant.
Right.
You're meeting them where they are. It's fine. Right. But going through that process with them, that's that work. That's the time that you have to take, because people aren't going to listen to just a rule. Boom. Right. Like don't speed. I'm going to speed. I'm going to speed when I drive out of here. Guaranteed. I will be speeding at some point in my drive today. I just will.
I have a solution. Every time somebody's sleeping, Diane crawls in the bed with them and takes a nap too.
I'm not sleeping in the
But
bed with these
I
girls.
feel like when you choose to speed, you have an understanding of the fact that there's a consequence that may occur if you are speeding and get caught.
Right.
Whereas I think they still struggle to bridge that
Right.
they are adults, they have a choice as to what they're doing, but if they're doing something that's not allowed, a consequence may come.
Absolutely. While I'm going to speed, but I have that understanding that I won't get away with it forever.
I'm willing to get a
Right,
ticket.
at some point I'm gonna get pulled over.
Right. Go ahead.
And you also have the funds and the means to pay for the ticket and blah, blah, blah.
The hell I do. I have 4 kids.
He works for
Are you gonna
nonprofit.
yell
You know
at
what I
the
mean.
officer? Are you gonna scream at the officer for the consequence though and try to argue the ticket if you get pulled over for speeding?
No, because I'm
No,
not.
but that's not his frame of reference.
My amygdala is not firing.
So
I'm
you-
not breaking the rule because I'm emotionally whatever. I'm breaking that rule because I want to get somewhere faster. Like I've logically thought through it. I'm not responding in a negative. Now, if I'm driving and somebody cuts me off, right?
Well,
And I start
everybody's
honking the
gonna
horn and riding
freak
their
out
you know
over
what's
that,
and
yes.
bumping them and doing all that kind of stuff, that's my amygdala running the show.
Yes.
Because I'm not thinking logically, I can't do this. Because there's consequences. You could have a gun, right? I could wreck. I'm going to get arrested. I'm not thinking that because I'm just blind rage.
Oh, right, that goes with road rage, it's a
Right,
given.
that's what that is, right?
That's what you gotta do.
Well, I
when you drive.
mean, okay, what you're saying is that even though your justification was, I'm driving fast because I need to get there, right? And you're like this, right?
Still not okay.
Still, no, it's not, because I mean, there has to be some logic in your mind that maybe if I'm going that fast, I might not be able to stop in time
Right.
from hitting somebody. So, okay.
Well, I have a question, and I think a direct care team sees this a lot.
Mhm.
is that we have the clients that break the rules and they know it. They know the consequence. They'll take it,
Yep.
and they're just going to do it because really the circumstance maybe that they were in prior was a lot worse than where they're at. So if they get a rep and they got to stay in this house, that's what they do.
So this is where caregivers get supremely frustrated.
Yes.
Because, and then they pull out the M word. They're manipulative.
Yes.
But you also have staff that allow them to do it.
That's right. That's what we're working on here to start making that baseline to where we all have the similar understanding of what's happening.
Great.
Right? So I'm going to challenge you to not look at your people that you're working with as manipulative creatures. It's going to be hard.
It is.
That's real hard.
I'm sitting beside two of them. I'm just telling you.
Okay?
Right, yeah.
But they're not. Think about everything that we've talked about. Go ahead.
But I don't think they're manipulative to be manipulative.
Right.
They're manipulative because of the way that they're used to responding to situations, and it's all been repetitive.
And that's
not,
but that's not.
That's the
right.
way they've survived.
That's
so,
not the definition of manipulation, though. So they're not being manipulative. They're being something different.
Yeah, and I think we
Yes.
might interpret that as manipulative,
Yes.
but they're not being manipulative.
Correct.
I don't think.
They're not.
They're figuring out a way to get their needs met.
That's it.
Right.
So our job then is to meet them where they're at right now. Okay, so you're not ready to follow all of our rules right now. That's what you're showing us, right? So how do we get them to follow some rules? And then 3/4 of the rules. And then all the rules.
I think like what you said about thinking out of the box when you were here the last time and coming up with positive ways to react to the negative behavior might spark something in their brain to react differently.
So back to this, we want to focus on the prevention piece. We want to get to them before they're able to respond in their patterned ways. So that's teaching what our expectations are, reinforcing those expectations, actively engaging with our staff, not ignoring them when they're doing well. This is the time to do that. When you see somebody in a good spot, that's the time to sit down and be like, you're doing awesome today, what's going on? So nice to see you smiling. It sounds absurd.
So do I.
No, I say that.
Right? It sounds absurd when we're giving more attention to the positive stuff than the negative. But guess what? That's how our brain works. If we're being reinforced with positivity when we're doing the right things, guess where our brain starts shifting? Those new pathways start growing and say, oh, that's different. That's a different response that I'm used to having. Right? You're changing the patterns of what's happening to them. It's like a paradigm shift a little bit. So when we want to talk about replacement behaviors, we have to think about how we structure them. So we want somebody to change what they're doing. It needs to be sequential. So like a soldier or athlete. Okay? Who wants to go run a marathon with me next month?
Kylie. Kylie will.
Kylie, let's do it. Are you ready right now? Do you lace up those sneaks and go?
Absolutely.
Okay, so what do we have to do?
Train.
Yes, how are we going to train? Are we going to start by running a half marathon?
No.
Hell no. I'm going to start with like a mile.
Right.
And we're going
For
to
a
see.
couple weeks.
Yeah, we're going to see how that time goes, right?
I'm gonna start by going into the motion.
I'm gonna look at it, see if
And it might be, but that's what, but seriously though, it might be, I need to buy a pair of sneakers to even start,
Yeah.
right? So you're all gonna have a different starting place with this too, right? I never want to run a marathon in my life. I never want to do that. That has nothing, I don't want to do that. It's like people want to skydive. I'm like, the only way I'm skydiving is the airplane's on fire or the military's making me do it. That's it. Right? I'm not doing it. Ever. But like you have to meet people at different spots, right? So how are we doing this? It's sequential. So little by little by little by little, we can't expect them to follow rules that they had never had before immediately when they walk through the door. Now we can have those high expectations and say, we want you to meet these. And here's all the things that we're going to do that 80% of the time to get you there.
I mean, I think if you put that in perspective too a little bit, if we look at like a client and where they're coming from, I don't have staff that do what my expectations are.
Yes.
And we're professionals,
Right.
right? So we're looking at hoping they're just gonna follow all these rules and do all these things, and then I'm like, I need to get my team to show
We're
up for the job that they said they wanna do.
Bunch of
Like,
different things, right?
yeah,
Like,
so
who are
I
the-
just think there's like just such a, like, we have these expectations, and I'm like, we're down ourselves too.
It's like when you go to the doctor and you're sitting across from this like unhealthy obese doctor and they're telling you like you need to stop eating
Yeah.
chicken wings and you're like, so do you, bro. Right? Like, that doesn't work for me.
Right.
You know?
Well, and I was thinking that, you know, we struggle with sort of a disconnect of communication between amongst the staff. And so at times, they're behaving certain ways after the day shift goes home, but none of that's being reported to any of us, so we don't know that there are things, those are things that like are happening regularly that we need to work on.
So everything we talk about is like a model within a model, right? You have like what we want to do with the caregivers or with our clients, but then there's also the outline. You need to have a healthy caregiving system to provide that safety for your clients. Okay, so we're getting there. We'll keep going here a little bit. So again, when we're designing these replacement behaviors, we have to keep in mind that they need to feel safe, wanted, successful. Right. So what's that motivating piece for our people? What motivates them? What rewards? I'll use the word rewards. Do they get?
Sometimes just seeing that it has made us smile and more peaceful, it makes them happy. It's a reward for them.
What kind of things can
self-esteem? I notice a lot of them, you know, have more self-esteem when they are doing the next right thing.
And you're reinforcing that by saying you're doing all these great things. Absolutely. Yep.
Sometimes there's stupid things, like they love the pens that I use, so sometimes if we've been working on something for a while and I notice they really made significant strides, I'll be like, here's your pen.
Yep.
And they're like,
So noticing those kinds of things, how can you build that into getting, I don't want to say compliance, but having them get to the point of following more rules for their own good? Does that make sense?
Yeah.
I mean, letting them know that the rules that they are following, like cleaning out your refrigerator, like you've done an excellent job with doing that, keep that up. Like when everybody comes in my group on time, I'll be like, thank you all for showing up. I really appreciate it. Like the other day, there was no phone, no activities, none of that. So at the end of the group, I'm like, thank you all for abiding by the rule about not having your phones on. I mean, let them know what, the rule that they're not breaking so that, that gives them some encouragement to keep going.
So going down to that, how do you're practicing this consistently?
Yes.
Right? So back to our backwards brain bicycle, if we want to change behavior, it needs to be reinforced over and 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 over to the point of absurdity. And then do it more. Right? So if you want the phone's out, whatever, and you have somebody that has a phone out, right? How are you handling that? That's another thing, right? Are you praising the other ones that don't have it out?
My announcement is doing
whatever.
in my group,
So those kinds of things are happening, and the patience is a big thing. That reward word. So what are they getting out of it? Because we all need that. We come here to get what? Would you come here for your own good? That's your reward. Congratulations.
well, and I feel like also the reward is that they're maintaining the freedom that they do have.
Yes.
Because after they have received so many reps, they get put on a restriction where they're not allowed to leave the house for the weekend.
Right.
And so as they're learning to follow the rules, especially if they've been somebody who's been here for weeks and has not been following the rules and they've been on restriction for a few weeks, they're learning that as I do things that I'm supposed to do, I'll have my freedom and I'll be able to go out and go to the stores and spend some time outside and...
Cool. So I don't know your procedures, your operations, whatever. But think about how do you shift from, okay, we know, everybody knows the consequences of it.
Yeah.
How are we supporting when they're doing well?
We do have rewards where if they go a week with no reps, there is a little slip to where they can like have 30 minutes of phone time in
Awesome.
the house and like a nap during the day or extra phone
Yeah,
calls they
so-
don't have. There is a reward system. We have different rewards. Like if they have 90 days of continuous employment, they get a gift card. We have a client of the month that they vote for, that there is a prize for that. So there are some reward programs that we
Okay.
have that they get rewarded for. certain,
In
stuff.
my experience through working with a variety of individuals, the more I focus on that side versus the punitive side, the more results we get. You still need to have the punitive side with consequences, but try shifting your behavior to what people like, what they enjoy.
And also like with the refrigerators and all being cleaned out, like Kim comes in and makes a hella big deal when the girls clean stuff up. Like the kitchen was cleaned up, she made like all the girls stand up and like made a big deal, had everybody thanking them and stuff. Like when the other fridge got cleaned out, like Kim's real good about coming in, checking
praise.
and making
Right.
a big deal and praising the girls when they do something. So like we do try to take notice when something is taken care of or when the girls do a really good job. So we do. throw
I'm not
that out
saying
there.
that you don't.
I was just letting you know what
I
we do.
appreciate
It's
that.
positive. Doing it.
Yes, that's,
Also, if we have a client that has consistently been struggling with following the rules, and so now we're trying to work on them specifically, with them, if they are already kind of in the hole with these reps and they've been on restriction a little bit, we make allowances, we make deals with them, like, for every day that you go without accumulating a rep from not following the rule, I'll take 3 of these away that you have, and so if you manage to do good all this week, like, you'll be completely out of the hole and start fresh again.
right.
And I feel that's kind of a reward, so, I mean, it's kind of a backward reward, but it's, it's,
You're meeting that person where they're at though. You
Yeah.
recognize that like, if we continue on this path, then nothing's gonna happen, and they're gonna leave.
Yeah.
Maybe, I don't know. Alright, yeah, so we don't want that.
Yeah.
Right, so how can we meet that person where they're at, and we know everybody's coming in differently. Right, so-
and explaining why the rules are rules sometimes, because sometimes they just don't want to follow them because they don't understand why they're a rule.
Yeah, so we talked about, go ahead.
And I think it takes time to understand where each client is, because when they get here, for me to have my one-on-one in my office and close that door and it's my time with that one client, I can learn so much about that person and they can learn so much about me too. But if I didn't take that time to learn about that client, I wouldn't be able to help them in whatever way was good for them. Like if and I feel like with me, like having one-on-one time with Kylie or Aaron on our leadership team, for me, that's very important. I love that one-on-one time where I don't have to share them with anyone else and I can just talk about stuff that's important to me and my job and what I'm doing. And I feel like it's the same for our clients. And for direct care, they're dealing with so many people at the same time, but I really think it's important if someone in direct care, just a suggestion, but if they could spend time one-on-one with a client, and I don't know how that can happen on a consistent basis, maybe that one-on-one time is important for the client too, especially if they like that direct care person.
I would say, try to build it into a schedule, where you can set that up to make that work, I don't know.
I think that another thing that, and I take a lot of the advice that I see with people interacting with clients from Kim, because I work really close with Kim. When we talk about consistency in general, I agree that the team, everybody should be consistent, but Kim's attitude is consistent daily. So they know that when Kim comes in, she's calm, she's happy. Even if she's got stuff going on at home, but she's coming in calm and happy. So they know, every client knows they're going to approach with Kim. And she's got relationships that she's just built with people that at times were challenges, and they'll come and give her hugs, high five her, joke around because of her consistent just demeanor. And I think that makes a big difference as well.
For sure. Yeah, so like if you're coming in, recognizing your scale of emotions is 1 to 10, realizing what's happening, maybe that's, you go and tell somebody, right? Rough night, didn't sleep, whatever, blah, blah, this going on. I just need a minute. And I'm sure there'll be somebody to help do that. So it's not that carryover behavior. You're not carrying it from your outside into your clients, and then we know they're here, right? So you're different today. Guess what their amygdala's doing? Bing, they're different, and off we go.
But if you meet them in the morning, I feel like that's the most important time. They're just getting their day started. And if you can meet them in the courtyard, in the group room, in a hallway, and you're smiling and you're happy, I don't bring my problems to work because my problems aren't their problems, and I don't want them to see that part of my life.
Yeah.
I'm here for them. So that's why when I get out of my vehicle, I try really hard to shut my emotions off from my personal life and focus on my work self, because I'm here for them. I'm not here for myself at all. Like, it's all for everything I do is for them. So that's just how I am.
And they sure
So
know that, don't they?
I try really hard to be a very positive person when no matter what even when I'm pissed about the refrigerators, I still try to be positive.
She does let me know she is.
Yes, everybody's got to
Yeah,
have that.
She's got a taste off, though.
I go in my office and I shut my door and I might vent
So,
to Diane or
I think
Kylie or
you're-
Aaron or Mary or whatever, but the clients don't see that side of me, and I don't want them to at all. That's not who I want them to. They have their own problem. I don't want to be a problem, and I don't want them to be afraid to approach me. Like, I don't want to be that trigger that makes that amygdala go like up there. You know what I mean? That's not who I want to be. I want to be the person where they see me and they're like, oh, it's Kim.
That's right. But you don't deal with many behaviors, do you?
Oh, Kim.
What do you mean?
Like when you're interacting with people, you don't have a lot of people screaming at you.
Not generally, no.
No, because they
She
don't.
never has anybody scream
I
at
know.
her.
I know.
Either apologizing or what can I do to help her, she does that a lot.
Yeah, she doesn't get the screaming and hollering.
She don't get that from the client.
And I think she works just as closely as she does with anybody else.
She teaches them
More
too,
with
she
them.
teaches
course.
class and
Yeah.
stuff, so it's
And-
not- she doesn't do that.
And it's effective. And it's not like they're manipulating you. They're not running you over, right? Hey,
I've
you don't
given
mess with
reps.
Kim.
I've given a few reps out, maybe 3 or 4 since I've been here.
3 or 4 in the whole year that she's been here.
Things like
Her favorite word is I hate giving raps.
I do, because
That's
I
awesome.
want to positively influence people into being good. I don't want to have to be the hammer that comes down. That's not my role here. I don't want that to be my role.
Okay. Your homework. I'm gonna make a note of
Good,
No,
I want to work.
it. See, look at that. Everybody's amygdala just got fired there at the word homework.
you're
You don't even know what
fired.
it is. What if your homework was go to the ATM and take out all my money?
Well, it's not.
Then you're like, I wouldn't get anywhere anyway.
It's not.
Okay. So we talked all about this kind of stuff, and we want to start talking about how can we be more present and emotionally available for our people. And that means being regulated, checking our emotions at the door. This is what it means to me. And being there with that person. Okay? So I want you all to think about this for next time. I'm going to make a note. I'm going to ask you to share what that means. So first, what kind of things can you do for yourself to make you more emotionally available?
Mary's gonna email everybody.
At work, you mean?
Oh, you are?
Yep, along with the video.
I don't care where. In your life in general, because that's going to help you be a better general person all around if you have to do it somewhere else first. Okay? And then second, what does being emotionally available actually mean to you? Think about it. If you were sitting across from somebody that was available to you emotionally, what would that person look? What would you want that person to look like? Be like? What would that experience be? Okay?
Nothing.
Perfect. Okay? Thank you, everybody. See you again.
Thank you. Here's your
Maybe. We'll see.